Tonight, action items for our first presentation. Our first action item for first presentation tonight is the 6-year transportation improvement plan, including a public hearing. So, so we should have the presentation first. So is that Mr. Gillis going to present on the 6-year tip, or is that Mr. Sheedy? Okay, Mr. Gillis.
Was it not?
I'm happy to come up. I don't know that I was asked to give a presentation on the 6-year plan.
All right, well, Mr. Gillis, would you please highlight anything on the 6-year plan that you see on there?
Sure. Well, first of all, the 6-year plan is a requirement for the city, and it's kind of a living document. And so it's okay that it changes each year as you address capital needs, then the list changes. One of the biggest ones, which I'll talk about here in just a moment, is work on the Argonne project. So there's a couple different projects. Think of it as the north project is the federal project, the south project is the state project. And those are 1 and 2 on, oh yeah, you see it there. And then I believe, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to come and give a workshop on some traffic calming and that type of thing in the coming weeks or months.
The intent is that during the July, either the June or July meeting, whichever fits your schedule, we would ask, and preferably right now, we would ask for the June meeting. We would do a workshop at 5 p.m. prior to the regular meeting, where we would do a traffic calming 101 for citizens, which would discuss the options of traffic calming that are available to us in Millwood. And Mr. Gillis could go through those as he has done before, and present alternatives, the ease of installation, some projected costs. We'll also have our public facilities person here, Mr. Sheely, can kind of talk to if there's any nuances or practicalities or impracticalities for any of those particular types of measures. So I would target that for June, because we will have we're going to shoot for the joint planning workshop in July.
Happy to do so. So once we get past some of the bigger items, there's one big sidewalk project on Dalton, but I'm really happy to see that the city's starting to focus on maintenance rather than just big capital projects, because this isn't a lecture, but if you're able to maintain the good stuff that you have instead of letting it go and then having to rebuild it, you're so much better off. So a perfect example is when we build or rehabilitate Argonne, we'll work with Kyle and Matt on getting it chip sealed at some point, maybe the following year. Nobody likes chip seal right when it goes down, but it does a lot to extend the life for a low relative cost. Let's see, and then jump in here if there's anything else you want to.
Mainly the only other change from last month was I double confirmed with Melissa and Cody about making sure there was, without a doubt, enough width on Empire without adding asphalt to the shoulder to get that second bike lane on the south side. And they said, yes, there is enough asphalt there, so they actually got rid of the widening of Empire for the bike lane and changed it to just pavement remarking, narrowing the lanes down like they talked about to get that additional bike lane on the south side. So that's basically the only thing they had changed from last month, was they took that one off there and just made it into pavement marking revisions instead, collaborated with the traffic calming on Empire. That was the only thing that was different from last month. I'm sorry to throw Matt under the bus, because I thought there was, I don't know what I was thinking.
Well, if I missed something, I apologize.
No.
Narrowing lanes too is a very effective way to control speeds as well.
So while we have Kyle and Matt up there, do we have questions from the council on the tip? As Matt said, 7 of the projects on here are pavement preservation projects, which is good for the city, keeps the pavement from falling apart. Any other statements as the engineer you want to make?
Regarding the maintenance, we should continue to solicit funds through TIB, because they see the wisdom in maintaining the good facilities that you have. That's
Thank
it,
you,
Mr.
Matt,
Mayor.
for jumping in there. Mr. Sander?
So the upgrade on gray signal equipment is, looked at 2029, but that doesn't prohibit us from moving that up.
No,
It's on the page. That's all it counts.
it's on the page. And that is the big takeaway here, is this is not a commitment to perform projects. But if we do not have these projects in our 6-year tip, we are not eligible for funding.
The tip can be amended as well. You
Yes.
just have to hold a public hearing at the time of amendment. So, I mean, to the extent that a project gets moved up or moved down, or, I guess you can't go sideways, but up or down in the timing, it's available for the council.
Any questions? Mr. Cole?
So the pavement preservation is that still done based on road scores? Are you guys going out and looking at the roads and kind of scoring them as far as the need?
We haven't personally, but actually we were out doing valves for the Grace Waterline project, and actually Andrew Beagle, the head guy for our area for TIB, he was out trying out some new AI stuff that you just stick on the hood of his car and he drives around, and it monitors all the cracks and different imperfections in the roadway. So, and he was just kind of using this as a guinea pig because he is kind of local to us, but
And I think that's a service that TIB provides cities, is a pavement condition survey.
Any other last questions? All right, thank you, Matt, for hopping in there. We'll talk to you shortly. So if there are no other council comments at this time, I would like to open the public hearing at 7:23 PM. We have received one written comment regarding the 6-year transportation improvement plan, and we have 2 individuals who have signed up to speak. So our first individual is Mr. Wiggins.
Thank you, Mayor. Winston Wiggins, 9925 East Dalton. Millwood Neighborhood Advocates is an organization committed to working with Millwood government to improve transparency and increase opportunities for citizen involvement. We are eager to preserve the small-town atmosphere of our city. In this context, we're writing to express our concern about the proposed widening of Argonne Avenue. We strongly urge a pause in this project for the following reasons. 1, the proposal is inconsistent with the Millwood Comprehensive Plan, which states the city's only major arterial, Argonne, should not be widened because it would further divide the community and increase the difficulty for pedestrians crossing the road. 2, widening Argonne to incorporate left turn lanes is designed to divert traffic onto East Empire, a street with an acknowledged problem of heavy traffic and unenforced speed. 3, widening of Argonne to accommodate left turn lanes is not the preferred option in the Argonne Road Corridor study. The preferred option calls for optimizing the existing 4-lane road, making the best of what already exists. 4, I'm lost. The proposal is based on seriously out-of-date information that does not take into account the long-term impacts of the north-south freeway connection and the Bigelow Gulch realignment. And finally, construction will cause severe disruption to our business community. The last time major construction was undertaken on Argonne, Millwood businesses suffered enormous losses, and some simply closed their doors. The members of the Millwood Neighborhood Advocates respectfully request a halt to the Argonne Corridor project so that the concerns of our members and other Millwood citizens can be addressed through a fully transparent, comprehensive public review process. The goal should be to enhance the small-town atmosphere of Millwood and bolster our downtown businesses. Thank you, and let Millwood be Millwood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. that brings us to our next signed up person. Our next sign in is Todd Beasy. Mr. Beasy.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. Todd Beasy, East 8610 East South Riverway, resident of Millwood since '72. I have 3 items I'd like to bring up. One is, please leave the width of Argonne between the bridge and the Millwood Railroad tracks as it is now. Do not widen it. Please install intelligent traffic lights that would have an arrow. People can turn left. It pauses the oncoming traffic. Please allocate no more resources to this project. It has very little benefit to Millwood. Many residents and businesses are not in favor of this project. And I know this because I go out and visit with Millwood residents, business owners. That's what I'm hearing. Number 3, please install traffic cams that record speeding and running of red lights. The people that break the laws can get a warning and or a citation. I think they would work very well because they would be on 24 hours. And when some people get some warnings and tickets, citations, hopefully they won't be breaking the laws in Millwood. Any questions? Okay,
Thank you very much, Mr. Beasy. So, do we have any other members of the public that would like to give public testimony as part of this public hearing? Second call. Third and final call. We will close the public hearing at 7:27. Thank you very much. And that is that for the tip tonight. It will come before you at the next meeting for your consideration and a request for action. So, that brings us to item number 8B, design service contract for Argonne Fold Depth Reclamation, Frederick to Trent. Mr. Gillis.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Matt Gillis, Welch Comer Engineers. So this is, as I mentioned before, this is the South project, the state project. The city received funding through an application process that we assisted with to rehabilitate Argonne, generally between the concrete section down at Buckeye or close to Trent, north to Frederick. And the general scope is to remove the asphalt and base rock, put it back in place, all the driving surface, upgrade pedestrian ramps that are currently not ADA compliant. 3, include I know them as a hawk signal, but they're a pedestrian signal, not the yellow ones that blink. They're somewhere between a traffic signal and an RRFB, which are the yellow ones. It's an overhead pedestrian signal that would be placed at Buckeye. And that was including that in the funding application was one of the primary reasons this project got funded. TIB was very interested in that. And so there will be some minor stormwater improvements as well. I know there are some areas that have historic issues, so those will be fixed. There'll be a geotechnical process. There'll be some environmental work that has to be done. It is state funding, so there's a little bit more freedom. TIB has been very, very good to Millwood years, excellent agency to work with. So what I think you have before you is the design and bid contract to get us to the point where you have a contractor on board, okay? And so I'm happy to walk you through the scope line by line. I doubt you want me to do that, but I'm also happy to answer any other questions that I haven't already answered.
As you are not being asked to take action tonight, do you have questions for Mr. Gillis on any of the information that you have seen in your packet so far? So, Matt, when is Welchcomer desirous of either determining if the city will or will not execute said contract?
Depending on how the two projects interface, ideally, we'd like to put the city in a position where you can bid this project at the most opportune time, which is going to be, say, midwinter, which means, backing up from that, which means getting the design started as soon as possible, because, things come up and we want to be ready. So it's really kind of sooner is better than later.
So sooner would be sooner right now would be our next regular meeting in June, which would be June the 11th. Is that soon enough?
I think we can work with that. I wouldn't be comfortable going much beyond that.
All right, so this will come back to council at for potential action on the next regular meeting. Any questions for Mr. Gillis before he departs? Thank you very much, Matt. So that concludes our first presentation items this evening. Our next item is action items for consideration and motion. First one is the consent agenda, which I will not read all that, but just reminding folks that the scope special event permit was withdrawn. Would any member of the council like to take any of those items presented on the consent agenda separately? Not seeing or hearing anything, do I have a motion on the consent agenda as amended?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, the consent agenda as amended is approved unanimously. Thank you. And that brings us to item 9B, which is our farmer's market special permit. This is a renewal of the farmer's market special event permit. The reason why it is before the council is that anything regarding sales of the in the park needs to be approved by the council. So let's see. Missed that one. Oh, sorry, missed that one. There it is. Kyle, was there anything in the special event permit this year that you wanted to talk about to council or anything like that?
The only thing I really changed this year from last year we tried to just keep smaller cars and SUVs driving on the grass, keep all the heavy trucks off of it. Didn't work. So this year we are doing no cars on the grass, and they will enter and depart from the trail between our shop and Gerber, and they'll be able to park on that dry land mix between the edge of the asphalt of the trail and the actual irrigated part of the park. Try to alleviate some sprinkler issues. Other than that, it's par for the course. Everything is normal.
Any questions for Kyle? Do I have a motion on the farmer's market? Do I have a motion on the farmer's market special event permit approval?
I'll make a motion for the special event permit for the farmer's market.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Farmer's Market Special Event Permit for 2024 is approved. Thank you very much. And so that brings us to item number 10, our reports. Our reports from our treasurer and acting clerk. Ms. Matkin has shingles, and I have asked her not to be in the office while she has that. So, Daniel, do you have anything that you think is of interest that is going on other in there? I know she's working on reports, all that sort of stuff.
And everything's in the packet.
Okay. Deb is available by phone. and by email, so if you do have questions, please reach out to her. That brings us to item number 10, which is our facilities report from Mr. Shuey.
Yep, on the 26th of April, we had our Arbor Day celebration in the Arboretum. We planted a large tricolor beech tree, and Shauna Vesey came to say our proclamation. On May 6th, the tree board held their special meeting, and we had Brian Wurst and Jim Flott, the creator of our urban forestry management plan, in attendance to answer questions and reconfigure parts of the draft ordinance to try to address some questions and concerns made by the public and board members to more accurately reflect our urban forestry plan. We should have a new draft ready to be seen at the June meeting. Matt and I attended a one-day class downtown put on by MRSC to go over changes to their website and to the small works roster process, which is what we have to use when we solicit bids for public works projects. The elevator, as you probably noticed when you came in, looks a lot different than it did last month. We are currently in a holding pattern, waiting for a spot to open up on the installer's schedule so they can come back and do the final installation on everything. And then we're gonna go ahead and get it all painted and inspected, and hopefully it'll be fully functioning by the next meeting, but I'm not making any promises on that. We're still short-staffed out in the field, but hopefully our new park maintenance employee will start tomorrow. And I also have a couple potential leads for pool attendance this season, so hopefully we'll be able to have the pool open at least some hours this summer. In all our remaining free time, we've been doing winter cleanup in the park and the trail, fixing sprinkler heads and valves, hauling street sweepings to the dump, and fertilizing all the green spaces around town.
Any questions for Kyle?
And dropping the ball on the stip apparently. I was supposed to do a better presentation on.
With no questions for Kyle, we'll go on to the utilities report. Mr. Erdahl.
All our water samples came back good this month. Specialty pump took out, rebuilt, and reinstalled one of our booster pumps. We had another water main break on Liberty, fairly close to the one we had in January, so that's probably gonna be the next line to replace. Inland Infrastructure completed the Grace Water Line project on schedule. They did a great job. They're nice to work with. We ended up paving all of Grace between Sargent and Laura because it was pretty deteriorated, and instead of having half a brand new road and half deteriorating, it was cost effective just to do the whole thing. Pacific Power came out. They put new batteries in the old park generator. We had Hydrotech out yesterday, and they got a new flow meter at Old Park installed. So we just need Bigfoot to come out. Hopefully they'll be out tomorrow to do the electrical on that. And sewer, we did a sewer inspection on a new sewer tap for the Starbucks going in. And we also did an inspection at 9815 Dalton. Rob's Demolition was out there, the house that burnt down. So they had to cut the sewer line there and cap it. Got that all tore down yesterday. That's about it.
Any questions for Matt? Thank you. So planning report from Ms. Tanyo at Upward 7 Consulting is in your packet. I will hit a couple highlights. The Planning Commission meeting on April 24th was canceled, and I believe the one on May 29th was also canceled. I believe it was for lack of agenda items. You'll see there that the permit, license, and applications, moving forward with the tenant improvements for the Starbucks on Trent, some fence permits, the Magnolia Village, MDNS was issued, and was approved with conditions and SEPA mitigation. The appeal deadline was, today at May 14th, 2024. There was an appeal received on May 13th, 2024. Mr. Wurst will discuss that with you in his legal report. And then the land capacity analysis for the city is proceeding at pace. Tomorrow at the steering committee of elected officials, the housing distribution projections for the county will be discussed. And there are currently two methods based on method A and method B, based on assigning housing capacity based on cost of housing, so income bracket based housing. That will be of interest tomorrow. I expect a pretty long steering committee meeting tomorrow. The intent is after that is finalized by the steering committee of elected officials and goes to the county for their approval or their consideration, then there will be some state legislative decisions that are still coming out. So the intent is to host a joint council planning meeting sometime in July that will be twofold. One, it will kick off our comprehensive plan updates to dovetail with the state comprehensive plan updates. And we'll also present the whole housing issues and what is going to be expected for housing in Millwood by units, based on the county's description, based on units, number of units, and income distribution for those units. So that is currently being looked at for a workshop in July. So that is the planning report. If you have any questions on anything in there, I would reach out to Ms. Tanya. Next is our legal report from Mr. Worst.
Thank you. So piggybacking off of what the mayor said, an appeal for MHP 2024-01 was filed with the city yesterday. It was signed by a number of citizens. That will be noted up for a public hearing. Now that the appeal period is closed, and by the way, you're the appellate body, right? The city council is the appellate body. Now that it's closed, we can get the full record and the appeal to you so you can start considering. Want to make sure that the council has sufficient time to review it. Also mindful of the fact that I believe there's a 60-day time window for decisions on these as well under the city code. Just want to be mindful, those that have sat, those that are on the council that did their tour of duty on the planning commission are mindful of the appearance of fairness considerations. You sit as a quasi-judicial body in this proceeding. You are determining rights of individuals, property owners, applicants, appellants. So that is very different than the policymaking rule that you take, where you are encouraged and invited to have discussions with folks outside of the hearing. In a quasi-judicial proceeding, and definitely under Washington law, it's codified under statute that the proceedings have to be fair and unbiased, and both appearances as well as in fact. So, ensure that there's no ex parte communications. Your decision is going to be based on the record that's before you. This is one of those odd situations where the council, as much as you're elected to carry out policy and you're encouraged to have communications on policy, this is not a policy determination. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding that could be subject to challenge accordingly. So that's a long, more drawn-out way than there's always a quasi-judicial disclosure that Kelly, when he chaired the planning commission, just about every meeting you'd be sitting in that capacity in some fashion, and there's a kind of a disclosure script that the city has had developed over the years. Any questions on that? Okay. First step in the quasi-judicial process. You didn't ask a question. Good. Second, the city has, as you know, the city has the council approved and the city commenced litigation, condemnation, eminent domain litigation against a property owner, Inland Empire Paper. They had, IEP had the last piece of property that was necessary for the Argonne project. And we have been pursuing that. We've also been pursuing a mediated settlement of that litigation with IEP. We spent a day with a third-party mediator, and it was a productive day. That was back in February. We didn't reach resolution of that case, but we have reached a tentative agreement in part to settle this litigation. It's called a CR2A partial settlement agreement. What the settlement agreement would do, there's basically three different stages of an eminent domain proceeding. There is a determination of public use, that's rarely contested, or public benefit, and public use, those are rarely contested upfront. There is the granting of site control, possession and use is the second phase. And then there's a third phase of eminent domain, which is the dollar amount, the just value of the property. I have, what I'd like to present to the council is a CR2A partial settlement agreement that addresses the site control, the possession and use of the IEP property. That would be conveyed over to the city with a determination remaining on the purchase price, the dollar amount, the just value amount of the property. We are continuing to discuss that with IEP and very hopeful that we can bring that to closure as well and not have to go to trial in August on that. Briefly, the CR2A partial settlement agreement would it would convey the last piece of property for site control purposes to the city. It would allow the city to proceed forward with securing the final funding and to move forward with the Argonne project. Through the discussions with Inland Empire Paper, we were able to reach an agreement that incorporates basically a significant portion of standards the city would require of a contractor to ensure that there's access to the IEP property, to ensure that there is not disruption to their business. And those are things that the city did in the previous Argonne project. Those are things the city would continue to do in this project. The one element that we do have in here, flagging, site control, traffic issues, a liaison from the contractor to the extent that there's a perceived interruption or an actual interruption to IEP's access. We'd have a contractor who's an immediate liaison to address that. IEP is free to pursue legal recourse if they need to, if this agreement's violated. But we've also agreed to purchase a bond not to exceed $100,000 that would enforce the provisions of this. So to the extent that there is an actual loss or a liability received or perceived by IEP, and it's adjudicated accordingly, that bond would be satisfied would be used to satisfy that obligation to Inland Empire Paper, not city general funds. It is, because this is an agreement that does involve some expenditure of funds by the city, it's specifically prefaced on approval by the city council. And so I think on that note, I would just kind of close my presentation. I would ask any questions of the council because I am asking you to take action on an item. And I would encourage the council and the mayor to solicit public comment on the CR2A as well. So, yes.
How long has this project been in discussion and been in motion?
So there was a study done in anticipation of the Argonne project that was done, concluded about 2007-ish, 8-ish, I believe.
Yes.
Previous Mayor Mork and I were meeting with the county to discuss the county's right of way as to the railroad and how that could be used to possibly incorporate into the project. Back in about 2008, it happened to be at the same time that the conversation started on the sewer interlocal agreement that was introduced tonight. The city acquired some property, some of the Gerber property, which was then Craftsman Construction. That was probably about those discussions were between about 2009 into about 2010 or 11. So there's been continual planning for this for at least, I'd say 15 years. I think the putting the pen to paper and drawing plans and getting it specific, the city's incurred costs with that. The city is, committed to certain pursuit of this project in association with those grant funds that the city's received to pay for those engineering and planning and drawings projects. To the extent that this project is determined to no longer proceed, there will be payback by the city to those funding sources. That'll be an obligation. But this is the last step in terms of otherwise going out, securing the last funds necessary. And there's, I mean, I think as you heard from Mr. Gillis tonight, there are funds available to the city. I believe the mayor's continued to speak to funding sources to see if they remain on the hook as we proceed forward with this. That was part of the commitment of the condemnation proceeding, is we would commit to continuing to find funding for this project. You can't commit to funding if you don't have site control of the necessary pieces of property for the project, so.
How much would we owe in payback if we were to?
Don't know that off the top of my head. I hate to put Mr. Gillis on the spot and ask him how much we paid him. But it's not, you know, it's been a planned project. To go out and get those funds, you have to have, we have to have specific plans in place. I don't think I don't know off the top of my head how much we'd have to pay back. Obviously, we'd ask for forgiveness. But, you know, that's the funding source. It is a commitment that that's part of the pursuit of the project.
It's also a mix of federal and state funds. So I can tell you that given the duration that we have been pursuing this project, the entities that are involved, Union Pacific, the county, the state, feds, and that the city has worked with the intent of fulfilling the project as presented to council and as designed, there would be a significant loss of status with if we walked out of this project. So it just is what it is.
Brian, on the previous Argonne project, did IEP raise any issues related to interruption of work?
Not to my knowledge.
No.
There was access to both sides of the road for all the businesses throughout. I actually went through and obtained temporary easements. I was walking up and down Argonne to obtain temporary easements in the middle of summer, probably in the same sport coat I'm wearing tonight. There was one business that closed shortly after the Argonne project. They sued the city for their business closure. That case was dismissed on summary judgment, did not reach trial because they didn't have a claim.
Last question. Do you recall when we voted to move forward with condemnation?
I don't. I can find that for,
That was last year.
yeah,
Spring or summer?
I can,
Yeah, it was last spring.
Yeah.
I
So
think
this
it was-
proceeding's been underway for
Over
over
a
12
year.
months.
Yeah,
yeah.
condemnation has.
Yeah, we didn't want to go to condemnation. June of 23. It was either June or July of 23. All the other businesses that have property that would be affected by this project conveyed it to the city. The city got an appraisal, paid the appraised value for that property. And so we proceeded. We were in discussions with IEP along that route, and it just ultimately didn't come to fruition, and we lost the funding that was available for that.
We made a last-ditch effort to secure, we'll call it friendly possession in December of 2022. That went nowhere, or did not bear fruit. Then I believe that we began the understanding that we were going to move to condemnation in February of that, and then after, I think there was one last effort made to see if we could avoid filing the lawsuit in Superior Court for condemnation. That failed, and then that's when we asked council to move to condemnation.
The summons and the summons and petition for eminent domain was filed October of 26 of 2022.
So you, Mr. Worst has asked you to consider this. You may consider this at this meeting. It is a regular meeting. You may delay considering it until the next regular meeting. But we need to consider it sooner than later because we don't have a project until you obligate funds, until you get possession. With no possession, you can't obligate funding. And at some point, if we do not move forward with securing the property to obligate the funding, we will lose all that funding. We have reached the end of our time and grace with SRTC and our other funding sources. However, because they are federal and state funding sources, and we have worked diligently and continue to represent that this is a project of regional importance and local importance and safety importance, all that. I'm sure there are contract terms that we are required to repay. What those are, we have not explored because, in all honesty, did not think we would consider this, so.
I make a motion to approve the CR2A, sorry, Brent?
I'd respectfully request that you allow public comment
Oh.
on this issue, just given it's an issue of, it's clearly an issue of public importance.
Yeah.
It is an action item that I'm asking you to take, and so I think it's appropriate to ask for public comment.
We should receive public comment then.
So is there anyone who would like to provide public comment on a motion by the council to consider acceptance of the CR2A? Any hands to be raised? If that's a comment you wish to make, then come on up, state your name for the record.
Kyle Dement. I live at 10306 East Empire, and I would appreciate if you'd put it off and take time to think about it a little more. I live on the end that's gonna be disrupted by part of that, so that's what I have to say.
Thank you very much. So let's go, I'm just gonna, do me a favor. If you wanna make a comment, put your hand up. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's start with Ms. Dement, and we'll work that way, and then we'll end with Mr. BC back there.
Again, LaDonna Dement, 10306 East Empire, and you know, you guys have heard comments from citizens for a very long time about this, how passionate people are about it. So now you guys are being pushed to do this, in my opinion, because of, you know, I might, just to save face. Is this project really what the community wants? You've heard a lot of people say no. So I really believe you guys need to really think about this a lot more and listen to what some of these people have already said about it. So I'm sorry I always get worked up, but thank you.
Thank you. So now we'll go to, sorry, sir.
Ken Bain, 9729 East Dalton. I think you should delay at least a month to put further study into it before you take a vote. You heard Mr. Wiggins tonight speak about the project, and it wasn't the preferred alternative in the plan back in 2007. It was the least preferable alternative. So I think you really need to study the issue for at least a month before you take a vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wiggins.
Winston Wiggins, 9925 East Dalton. Yeah, I would encourage you to wait and take a look at it. I mean, this comes up tonight, and it's really hard from a public citizen standpoint to make a meaningful comment without really understanding it. So maybe you're better at that than I am, but I'd prefer that you delay it and study it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. BC.
Todd Beasy, East 8610, East South Riverway. But I heard just in the last 10 minutes that this project's been going since 2007, that's about 17 years. There's been a lot of discussion from the city, with state officials, federal officials, the railroad. I realize those things have to happen, but why did it take so long until you start talking to the residents, citizens of Millwood, and the businesses of Millwood? Many times we've asked, and we hear from no project. And then we hear there's a project, traffic calming. My first thought was traffic calming, okay. Oh, excuse me, congestion relief. It was, first came out as congestion relief. I thought, congestion relief? Well, what are they gonna do about those trains? The trains are what cause the congestion. Also, then the project's name has changed 3 or 4 times just in the last year and a half, 2 years. And tonight we hear it's been changed again to the Rehabilitation Argonne Project. Please, do not widen Argonne. Reconsider the project. Find funds for a different project of keeping Argonne the width it is. Thank you.
Any other comments? Ms. Young?
Hi, Shereen Young at 8903 East Liberty. I just feel like I needed to make a correction, or I was working at Inland Empire Paper during the last project in 2009, and yes, there was extensive concern about business continuation. Trucks had to go east on Empire. There was a time they had to go west, and there was a lot of conversation, discussion, coordination with the contractor, and not to say it didn't happen, because it did. I thought the contractor did very well with that, but there was a lot of concern because I was the one involved in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? So, council, what is your pleasure hearing the public comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the CR2A partial settlement agreement between the city and IEP.
Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion from council.
Discussion is that we've been working on this for a long time. This does not advance the project any further than committing funds after we obtain possession and use, and then we can engage in public education and receive feedback from the public on the design and construction plans. And we cannot do that until we have possession and use. So this is one more step in the condemnation action that we started in 2022. And we need to get this done so that we can actually engage the public and get the project at least out of the initial planning stages. Well put.
Any other comment from the council?
And I will say the terms in the CR2A agreement are very significantly consistent with what Welch Comer had outlined, at least as far as project management and traffic control from the last project, or it would have been in the project regardless. And there are stipulated public meetings in the CR2A agreement.
Ms. Beasy?
Yeah, I would echo that we took a vote in 2022 to condemn. This is closing the loop to something that was already voted on in 2022, and it is distinct from the project moving forward. This is us taking possession of property, and the comments sessions that are about to ensue and all the other things, the program's not set in stone. I would encourage everybody to participate in that public discourse.
Any other comments? Mr. Sander, did you?
I was about the same thing as you were mentioning. Ms. Beasy was talking about this. And Sean, we can't get the details until we get the property. So we gotta get the property in order to really get down to the details and see what we can do and to address some of the concerns and to better express some of what may be, considered positive effects of this besides just the turn lane. So.
Any other comments? All right, so we have a motion and a second of that motion. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, the motion passes unanimously.
I abstained.
I did not hear you abstain. And
Yes.
there,
Are you standing on a conflict, or is there a
I've
basis?
abstained on every single vote about this condemnation since it started, so I'm abstaining on this one as well.
Okay,
so it is, so let's go back and clear for the record. The vote is 4 in favor, none opposed, 1 abstention. All right. Okay. That brings us to item 10F, the mayor's report. Mayor's report is that the CR2A was negotiated and provided to legal counsel for review, was brought forward to council for consideration. You heard today from the undersheriff regarding the law enforcement contract. As we said earlier, or as we discussed, I do believe that this law enforcement contract that is provided to us now is of significant benefit, even if it did not result in a full-time deputy. That is a true benefit to the city, and I applaud the current leadership at Spokane County, not only for thinking in this manner and alleviating the burden of these sorts of settle and adjust fees from the smaller cities, but also Sheriff Knowles and this group has done a fantastic job in getting actual cadets and recruits into the law enforcement academy and getting deputies out on the street. So kudos to them. You also heard today from the Kyle Tuig at Spokane County Environmental Services for the wastewater. I will say, following that this has been something that we have for a long time been able to push off. I believe that we've gotten an additional 5 or 6 years out of it. But the county is no longer in a position to allow Millwood to be treated differently than any other client, which is what it is. We are their client when it comes to wastewater services. We have no options for wastewater treatment. That's kind of what it comes down to is there's nothing else out there other than that system. So they can no longer treat us any differently than any of their other wastewater clients. That also not only includes the people that they serve in the county and city of the valley, but also residents of Liberty Lake and residents of East Spokane. So this is not something that is foreign to those. We are continuing with the elevator upgrade. We have, as Kyle said, we're looking to hopefully open the park pool this year, so we can have some swimming. And just a general trying to find staff to fill these other roles. So I think that's kind of where we're at. We do have, as I said, next month, I would like to ask the council to host a special workshop with regards to traffic calming. Mr. Gillis would come out and present the traffic calming options that were available. For the people in attendance, those options are not just designed for Empire. This is a kit of parts that would be used anywhere in the city. And rest assured that as soon as we put in traffic calming measures one place, there will be other folks coming asking for traffic calming measures everywhere else. So we need to do a good job of understanding what is available to us that works within our financial means and also works within the infrastructure that we already have in the ground, and our restrictions on areas where we can put swales, et cetera, like that, because with some of these sorts of traffic calming measures, you have to do stormwater control. So Mr. Gillis will go through all of that. The next is the, in July, the special, workshop for, the planning presentation with the joint meeting, which will discuss housing units, housing unit allocation within Millwood, housing unit allocation within the county, and the projections for population and the types of housing that is, being required at a state level through state legislation. So some of this is, and Ms. Tanyo being on the committees and where she's at can explain this much better, but some of this is not simply stuff that we can say no to. Some of this, particularly with economic types of housing to fit different types of economic brackets, everybody has to take part of that, and there are some significant, there's gonna be some significant challenges with the types of rents that are expected versus the overall cost of an actual, and by cost, I mean rent, any of that dwelling unit. So that will be a good workshop for not only you to attend and the planning commission to attend, but citizens to attend and hear kind of what the next 10 to 15 years are gonna look like in Spokane County. Population projections are very, very aggressive and very interesting. So, any questions for me? Mr. Sander?
The traffic calming workshop, is that in conjunction with the council meeting or a separate day altogether?
No, that'll be, I'd like to do it, I'd like to just basically keep it as one of those 5 to 6 things on that Tuesday. So there'd be a special workshop from 5 to 6, and it would pretty much be a lot of talking at you, a lot of information being blasted out, and then as going forward from there, folks could consider, and that would give folks an idea of what public facilities and our engineers are considering based on what our given situation is.
But the July workshop would be a separate, special meeting.
That's gonna have to be a special meeting, and what we may try and do at that July meeting is keep the council meeting abbreviated so we could go long on the special meeting to begin with. So we could do a 5 to 7 special meeting and then a 7 to 8:30, 9 o'clock council meeting. Yes?
Do we know what day the July meeting is?
It's July 4th.
Well,
No.
I'll be out of town after July the 11th.
It is July the 9th.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes, that we have a full week, that first July, so that makes it the second, the second week of July. So that would be what we would shoot for, but a lot of that will depend upon, Lisa will be in contact with both you and the planning commission to make sure that we have as many individuals there as possible. We want at least quorums of everyone there.
And so just to clarify, June extra long meeting and July extra long meeting?
Yes, it'll.
A 5 to 6
5 to-
and then a normal
yeah.
6 o'clock meeting in June, and then a abbreviated meeting after a 2-hour collective session
There you
in
go,
July.
there you go, cause I do think there will be, I do believe there will be 2 hours of information at that July meeting regarding housing and land use and kicking off the comp plan.
And I know that you were gonna do all the good announcements, but I just wanna make sure everybody hears what.
Yeah, that's it. So, that ends my mayor's report. So council information is in your packet, and that leads us to public remarks, which is our public remarks are an opportunity for citizens to address the council, either in person or by submitting their remarks to remarks@millwood.org. We ask that in-person speakers limit themselves to 2 minutes and follow the citizen participation guidance posted on the hall. We have one individual signed up right now on the public remarks sheet, Mr. BC.
Todd Beasy, 8610 East South Riverway. 2 items. The Millwood Days is scheduled for August 24th, a Saturday, and the Scope event will take place at the Millwood Days. They're big silent auction, and we also have going to try a cornhole tournament. We have 3 sets of cornhole boards and stuff, so that should be fun. Number 2, Friday nights at the Lodge. This Friday is Western Swing Dance class with Joel Thomas, and usually they give some instructions before the swing dance and stuff. May 24th is Cribbage Night. Bring your cribbage boards, it says. And the last day in May, May 31st, Radical Rick Science Show. So that should be interesting. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So now we will do our call. First call for public comment. Second call for public comment. Third and final call for public comment. Seeing no more, we will close public remarks. And that brings us to council remarks. We'll start with Ms. Vesey.
Well, I would like to thank you for bringing forth that interlocal agreement with the undersheriff for the sheriff's department. And I want to thank staff for everything that they've done this month. Thank you.
Mr. Culler.
Same comments. Also, thanks for dealing with the county wastewater contract that we've been kind of pushing off or delaying for the last 20 years.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'd like to get undersheriff here more often.
That I don't think you want the undersheriff here for the same reason we want the undersheriff here, but
Yeah.
we can make that happen more often, yes. And actually, Mr. Kittle's staff's schedule, works, there's been a couple changes. He does not have to go, I think he used to have to go out to Deer Park. He's not having to do that right now, so he has, more flexibility in getting out here for us.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Mr. Sander.
No comments.
Mr. Stravens. With that, do we have any announcements that you know of? I don't think we do. When are we turning on the spray pads and stuff like that? Any ideas?
The spray pad we typically turn on a couple weeks prior to the end of school, but the pool ideally opens that weekend that school lets out. I'm not sure exactly when that is, but around the middle of June.
Okay, so we're not looking at turning on any water features this month?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Unless it gets to be 100 degrees out, then maybe we'll think about it.
So our next regular meeting, the council's next regular meeting is set for June 11th, 2024 at 6 p.m. We will have a workshop regarding traffic calming measures from 5 to 6 p.m. before that, which will be open to the public and will be a presentation by Welch Comer to council and interested parties. And so with no other business before us, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? All in favor? This meeting is adjourned.